You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to have a little bit of a tougher conversation. I'm going to give you a trigger warning. We are talking about miscarriage today. So if this is triggering to you, you may want to skip this one. But I think it's also very important to listen to and just know that, you know, whatever you've gone through, you're not alone. So with me today is Charity Majors. So Charity, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Tracy, for having me. I'm excited to be here, even though it is a harder topic. There's actually a lot of healing available. So I'm excited to chat.
Yes, absolutely. I am no stranger to miscarriage. I've had two. One of my daughters has had one. So it's tough. It's really tough. And it's very, very painful, physically and emotionally. So, just the fact that you're willing to come on and, kind of talk about your story and your experiences is powerful.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm sorry that you had to journey through that. And even if you're listening and you're still here, it's for those of you that have also gone through that journey. It's, I think a big thing for me when I had gone through it was I had felt so alone and felt like no one was talking about it and felt like no one knew what I was going through. And there is some element to that. And there are a lot more of us out there. And so a big thing for me is I'm actually here to share that there is hope on the other side, that it doesn't mean that we're broken, that our bodies are broken, that there is actually ways to find that it was a gift. For me, I've actually been able to really help, or I've been able to really draw out the lessons that I was meant to learn through the hardest of times, and really actually turn it into something, into a message. It's where my podcast, I have a podcast called Meant for More. I have a book called Meant for More. It was really the launching pad of my healing journey. Coming out of the loss of a child was the launching pad for a big part of my purpose and a big part of my mission. And so I'm such a firm believer that, a lot of our purpose typically can come out of the hardest times in our life and those dark nights of the soul.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. I was alone as well. My husband took it really, really hard. I had two kids already. Not that makes it any easier or anything, but he didn't have any kids. So for him, it really hit him really super hard. And I think because it hit him so hard, I felt like I had to portray the stronger, tougher, person. And yeah, so it felt really lonely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we obviously process things differently, right? Because for us as the women that are going through it, it's like there are different things that our body experiences and, and then for the men that are involved, like I know same as you, like my husband, he processed it really differently than I did as well. And even though he was so supportive and right by my side and all this different stuff, it still is it's not just the loss of the child, or the baby, it's the loss of hopes or dreams or plans or, expectations or views of this is what our family is going to be like. If it was, we had already announced, things to our family and we're getting gifts and different things, now all of a sudden it's oh, okay. This room isn't going to be the nursery or, oh, now I have to tell our family or tell our friends, actually, there isn't, you're not going to have another grandbaby or different things like that. And so for me, it was just the processing through of not just the loss of a child. And I just remember even asking the big, ugly, the deep questions of the like, why God, why this, why our family, why this baby, why this dream. And I just remember sitting in a pile of tears ugly crying on the bathroom floor, even questioning why I was here. And I just remember sitting there feeling so broken and feeling so alone and feeling so just like buried in shame. And what was so beautiful, actually, what came out of that was God just came. I'm just going to say, God, that's what I believe. Like, for you, fill in the blank for what you believe.
Absolutely.
But God came and sat with me in the puddle of tears and just met me. And it was such a beautiful moment of really being imparted. And he just told me that I wasn't broken and that there was nothing that he needed to fix. And he didn't give me the 7 steps to get out of my whatever, like a lot of the personal development world does. And what began to really be infused in me and imparted in me, because I think we can teach what we know, right? There's a lot of people teaching what they know, right? There's a lot of business professors at university teaching business and they've never even owned a business, right? But we can impart what we've experienced. And there's a difference between teaching something like from our head knowledge versus imparting from our experience and from our heart knowledge. And what I was then imparted from that experience now, as I journeyed out of that dark night of the soul and those big, deep questions. And, I got grief counseling and I got inner healing and I had an amazing community and found support and, I got EMDR and all of these different healing modalities that really helped me come out of that. But what I was imparted was this deep, deep belief that every single cell of my entire being, every single part of my entire being now knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that every single one of us are not here by mistake, and that there are a million pieces and parts that have to come together for life to be sustained. And so, Tracy, it's not a mistake that you're here. It's not a mistake that I'm here. If you're listening to this, it's not a mistake that you are here at this time out of all of eternity. Yep. Walking around as a walking miracle. And what was really incredible was I now literally like healing out of that dark night of the soul journey for me and journeying through loss was I was then imparted with this incredible sense of belief and almost like this new perspective, like these new lenses of glasses where I literally see every single person in front of me as a walking miracle, that every single person is a God dream wrapped in human skin here on this planet to accomplish incredible things. And now I can literally see it in other people. And so now when I speak, when I write, when I host my events, when I work with people, it's pulling out that potential and it's really igniting that potential and it's really helping them foster and find and grow that potential, that seed of potential that's inside each and every one of them. And it's something that gets imparted, right? It's not just something that I teach. It's something that really gets imparted on a deep, deep level. And it ignites something so incredible especially when women, after they leave the event that I do, or after I work with them, or as they, I kick them out of the nest and they get to go fly. But it's something really special that happens. And so now looking back on that journey, I would never wish it upon anybody. And at the same time, I can hold the truth that lives in the tension of, I would never wish it upon anyone else. And it has also been one of the biggest gifts that I was able, I've received some of the biggest gifts and lessons in my life from that experience. And so I wouldn't change it for the world.
I completely understand and agree. We're in these dark moments that are just absolutely devastating, absolutely tragic, but they can be gifts. In the moment, hell no.
Right, totally.
But totally. Down the road, there is a gift in there for so many of us. And whether it's, now we have this experience, like you said, that we can impart on others to help them through it. Or, now we've found this strength that we didn't know we had. We found our voice that we
Yeah.
didn't know we had. There's, I don't want to say things happen for a reason. Sometimes I believe that, and sometimes I'm like, no. But I think that there's always something we can take away from even the bad things, even my sexual assaults, even my domestic violence issues that I had, all of that. Would I wish it on anybody? Absolutely not. But I am glad that I went through it like you, because now I am in a place where I can reach out to others and say, I've been there. I get it. Let me help you. And, it is a gift.
Absolutely. And just like what you said, that there are always lessons in everything that we go through, no matter what it is, the big things, the little things. And I love this saying, it's that we will repeat what we do not repair. And so what's really interesting is if we haven't gone back to pull out the lessons and to repair the traumatic things that have happened to us in our life, then we're going to actually repeat the lesson until we pull out the lesson and repair what has been hurt on the inside. Because what's really interesting is when it comes to like repeating what we have not repaired, we actually pick up different lessons. And by the time that it's between 7 and 9, 80% of our beliefs are ingrained in our subconscious. And we tend to live out that 0 to 7 over and over and over. And if we haven't gone back into repairing some of those beliefs or some of those things that we picked up in our younger years, our view of the world, of what's available to us, of how people treat us, of if we belong, if we're too much, if we're not enough, if all of that different stuff, then we're going to repeat it, right? So I like to say, right, we have like these big experiences, like these big traumatic experiences, these acute traumas, like what we're talking about with domestic violence or miscarriage or different things like that. But then we also have these complex traumas. These, I like to say in my book, I call it like these little bullet hole wounds that happen. And when you get enough bullet holes, like it still leaves a lot of wounding. And so if we don't go back and repair those things, the big traumas, like I said, the cannonball size wounds or the bullet size wounds, then we're going to repeat those lessons over and over and over until we pull out the gold nuggets, until we pull out the lessons, until we then repair, so that we don't necessarily have to go through a similar experience. Or it's like that same lesson that shows up over and over. Might be a different person but you're like, gosh, am I really here again?
Right?
Am I here again? Right. And it's because we haven't repaired or pulled out the lesson. And so we haven't come at it differently the next time it showed itself around. And so until we go about it differently, then it's going to keep showing up. And so that's why going back into those traumatic experiences and really doing the inner healing work, the big things and the little things, it all matters.
Absolutely. Well, what are some of the things that helped you to really heal after your miscarriage?
For the miscarriage, a lot of it was I went through grief counseling. That was huge for me and then as well as EMDR. So if you're not necessarily familiar with EMDR, it's the modality that therapists are able to use to really help connect the brain. And in the brain, what's really interesting is that the same neurons that fire together wire together. And so if you can kind of think about what happens in your brain when we have a traumatic experience, it's almost like what happens in your muscles, like when we get a knot. And so it's like, if you've ever had like a knot in your shoulder or knot in your back, it kind of feels like it's like all chunked up. Right. That can happen with our neurons in our brain. And when there are traumatic experiences, it tends to, it will trigger those same neurons. And then the signals in our brain just kind of get all knotted up in that same spot. And so then that's when we feel that trigger. That's when we feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to lose it. I'm broken, or I'm irritated, or I'm angry, or it's these triggers. And so the EMDR, what was really interesting was, as I went back into that experience, guided by a really great therapist, we were able, the EMDR, what it does, it connects the different parts of the brain. And then you see like where different triggers show up in your body or within different memories. And as you process through those different things, it's almost like a massage, for your muscles, where the knots in the muscle begin to smooth out, so that the memory is still there, but the trigger isn't. And so it becomes a process of me having my story instead of my story having me. And so I was able to then go back and heal other aspects of traumatic experiences, and to really find the lessons, and to find the truth, to find the healing in the big places of wounding as well as in the small places of wounding. So EMDR was huge. Another big part of it for me was community. As hard as it was to find a community that had also been through loss. There are a lot of really great, whether it's online community or in-person communities. Again, just to know that I wasn't alone. That was huge. And then another really big healing journey part of it for me was sharing my story. I actually ended up, after I had my story, not after my story had me, I had to kind of go through that journey of healing, but to where I could be brave and share my story, and where I did find the lessons and the healing out of it. And so I started to share about it in my social media. I started to share about it at I got different speaking events. I started to share about it on my podcast. I wrote about it in my book and launched my book. And it became like the lessons that I learned out of it actually became this launching pad for a deeper message of what I share in Meant for More. And so it really became this beautiful connection piece and community, with also really powerful healing modalities, to where I now get to help women find the power of their story. I get to help them turn their mess into their message. I get to help them take their pain, turn it into their purpose, and take it to the platform, because I'm such a firm believer that what we go through is not meant for just us, right? What we go through tends to then be the roadmap for other people that might be starting that journey. And we get to say, actually, there's hope on the other side. And here's what I've been through. And here's some things that have helped me. And so the light that we get from the darkest of times is not meant for us to keep. And we get to pass that light on to others to help light the way.
Oh my gosh. I love everything about what you just said. That's amazing. Yeah. I've never done EMDR. I've definitely heard about it. I've kind of studied it a little bit, but I've never actually experienced it. But from, everything that I've heard and what I've heard from other people who have used it, is that it's an incredible healing tool. So definitely, listeners, I urge you to check that out. And sharing, nobody wants to talk about the hard things, and nobody wants to hear about the hard things. But the truth is, we have to do both. We have to be able to talk about it in order to not only heal us, but to help others, but to help society, get rid of the stigmas around these different traumas that we have. Having a miscarriage. Am I broken now? Well, no, just because, you had a miscarriage doesn't mean you're broken, but that's what society wants you to believe. Things like that. And, I'm getting up on a soapbox here and I don't want to, but yeah, talking it out for me, it's been crucial. And I love how you say, you own your story doesn't own you. That is amazing. And that's exactly what I experience now. And that's from talking so much and telling my stories. I get to the point where I can talk about my sexual assaults and all of that, and it doesn't affect me. It doesn't leave me emotionally drained. I don't feel like I'm going to go cry, all of that. So yeah, there's so much power in just talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's the big part of community. I think that we're we're absolutely made for community. What's interesting though, is that, right, like community can be one of the biggest places that we receive hurt. I know for me, I've been hurt by other women, I've been gossiped about, or I've done the gossiping, right? Like, and at the same time, community can also be the biggest place of healing when we find the right communities, right? And so that was a big part as well, to where as I had healed different parts of my story, my community began to change. When I was younger, like I was talking about those bullet-sized wounds, what was really interesting was some of the beliefs that I had picked up from places of hurt, where that I didn't belong, that women, all they did was they gossiped or they just talked bad about others or whatever it was. But as I healed those parts of myself, and as I realized that there are actually really incredible supportive communities where women can belong, where they are seen and known and heard, and they're allowed to be fully alive, where for me, it was like I was either rejected because maybe I was not enough or maybe I was too much. Well, guess what? The places where I found that I fit, I was par for the course, and every part of me living fully alive was allowed to be there. And that was where the power of community really came in. And so that's a huge aspect. And so there are places out there where women don't talk crap, where they don't gossip, where your hurt and your heart and your brokenness and all the brokenness that you might feel is actually allowed, and it's a safe place. And so, yes, community can be a place where we are hurt, but it's also one of the greatest places of our biggest healing.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, for those listening, just a reminder that we do have the community over at the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. It is a free community where you can just come in and, post on the message boards and connect with other people and just get the support. I will absolutely not allow any hate, any negativity, any bashing, none of that. At total zero tolerance for that. So you just go to gaftrcommunity.com and sign up and create your free account. So I will make sure I get that in the show notes as well. But Charity, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us and, telling us about your story and about your healing and all of that. It's been wonderful, actually. Very wonderful.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. And for those of you guys that are listening, if you have what I like to call your meant for more moment, kind of that time where even like you, Tracy, where you have your story and you want to share it. I actually have on my podcast, it's called Meant for More, but I have what's called my Meant for More moment. And if you have that meant for more moment where you were able to take that ugly cry moment on the bathroom floor and come back out of it, and you have your story and you are ready to share it with others, then all you have to do is text me the word moment to 833-231-8098. And what I'll do is actually send you a link where you can submit your story. And then I read it on the podcast, because like I said, I'm such a firm believer that your story is not meant for you just to keep. And the lessons that you've learned are not meant for you to just keep. And then it can really inspire other people. So if you have that meant for more moment, then I would love to read it on the Meant for More podcast.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. And listeners, I will have all of that information in the show notes. I'll put that number and everything in there. Just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com and pull up Charity's episode, and all of that information will be there for you. So again, Charity, thank you so much for coming on. And listeners,
thanks for having me, Tracy.
Absolutely. Listeners, if you're listening from your favorite podcast app, please be sure to give us a like and a follow and a subscribe and a review and all of that. So it's really important to help keep the podcast up and running. I appreciate you. I thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.